Let Lu Bu have more thick black, more strategies, more women, and more subordinates. Then, after Lu Bu, there are no more three kingdoms. I am presenting my new book, Golden Control, to old book enthusiasts. Please click to save it. Control gold, control silver, control copper and aluminum, control steel, control all metal substances between heaven and earth, control all metal elements in the human body. Not Iron Man, not Magneto, just a college graduate engineer. Metal-covered factories and steel jungle cities are his main battlefields. I have no ambition to control the world, I just want to conquer a big industrial empire. There is no promiscuity in the world, I just want to have an 11 who is fat and thin. Keywords of the novel. Rebirth of Lu Bu and unification of the three kingdoms without a pop-up window, Rebirth of Lu Bu and unification of the three kingdoms. Download the complete text, Rebirth of Lu Bu and unification of the three kingdoms. Latest chapters for reading. Chapter 1. Rebirth as Lu Bu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty, in the autumn of the 6th year of Emperor Ling's Zhongping reign, on the 21st day of the 8th lunar month. Outside the city of Luoyang, Note 1, on the banks of the Yellow River, Note 2, at the Mengjin Ferry, the moon is dark, the wind is high, and 3,000 iron cavalry stand tall like a forest. Lu Bu painted a halberd in the sky, stood on a horse, standing in front of the formation, looking at Mengjin Ferry, with a face full of ups and downs. The grain and grass piled up in Mengjin port can save tens of thousands of refugees, and there are thousands of innocent people in the port. He cannot bear to be poisoned. But this is a military order issued by General He Jin, and the governor of Bingzhou, Ding Yuan, ordered him to execute it. Note 3. How can he disobey it? Lu Bu followed Ding Yuan for many years and was used to the reckless lives of the official army. He sighed lightly. Perhaps after killing those eunuchs, the world would be peaceful, and these grassroots people would also be considered dead. Lu Bu raised Fang Tianhua's halberd high and said, "Listen to my command, fire Mengjin, shine light on the city of Luo." 3,000 cavalry from Bingzhou galloped forward and surrounded Mengjin port, quickly igniting their torches. 3,000 torches were thrown high, crossing the night sky and landing in Mengjin port. The piled-up stacks of grain and grass had already been coated with fire oil. In an instant, a raging fire broke out and quickly spread to the thatched houses. Thousands of people in Mengjin port are still sleeping, and many have not had time to escape and have been burned alive. Accompanied by the mournful cries of innocent people for help, the fire grew stronger and higher, illuminating the Yellow River and the sky, all the way to the city of Luoyang. The eunuchs led by the 10 constant attendants in Luoyang saw the flames and knew that He Jin had introduced foreign troops to kill them, feeling panicked, as if the end of the world had arrived. He Jin and his party each have their own calculations, some cheering for the upcoming power, while others are worried about the upcoming chaos. Lu Bu couldn't bear to see the innocent people struggling in the raging fire, waved the Fang Tianhua halberd, and ordered evacuation. At this moment, he suddenly felt a chill on his face and couldn't help but look up at the sky. When I first arrived at Mengjin Ferry, the moon had not yet risen, and the sky was azure with bright stars. However, when the great fire broke out, the starlight dimmed and the sky became gloomy. The clouds accumulated thicker and thicker, and the wind blowing from the Yellow River grew stronger, carrying heavier water vapor. The heavy rain poured down in an instant, pouring like a ladle, extinguishing the fire, saving many innocent people, and turning the army of Lu Bu who was preparing to evacuate into a drowned rat. Accompanied by strong winds and heavy rain, eerie purple lightning flashed across the dark sky, tearing through the sky and fiercely splitting down, landing on Lu Bu without bias. The lightning was so dazzling that it flashed over Lu Bu's body, causing him to flicker for a moment and then dim again. He lay limp on his horse. 3 days later, in Zhaopingjin outside Luoyang, the military camp of Bingzhou was located inside the chief clerk's tent, Lu Bu. General Huang asked Ding Yuan in a low voice, "Sir, what should Lu Bu do if he doesn't wake up for a long time?" Ding Yuan coldly glanced at Lu Bu on the bed and said, "I'll give him 3 more days. If he can't wake up for 3 more days, he'll never be able to wake up. At that time, he'll have to say that his injuries won't be cured, and how many of those who were struck by lightning can survive?" Huang's shiny face showed malice and lewdness. "It's best if he's dead. His father. In-law Yanmu has no support. I'll forcibly marry the Yan family and hand over the Yan family's assets to the adults." Ding Yuan stroked his gray beard and chuckled inwardly, "After removing the eunuchs, I will rely on the iron cavalry of Bingzhou to force the great general He Jinxian to move me to the position of 3rd Duke. No matter how much money he has, it won't be a problem. What I am concerned about is that Bu, relying on his military prowess, has repeatedly broken through the yellow scarf, Xianbei, and Xiongnu, and the soldiers in the army only follow his lead. If this continues, I am afraid he will take pride in his achievements and have ulterior motives. If he doesn't die this time, I will find an opportunity to eliminate him earlier. I don't want to raise tigers as a threat." Lu Bu's trusted soldiers were all outside the camp tent, and Ding Yuan and the others quietly lowered their voices, but this voice could only deceive the soldiers outside, but not the person on the bed. Within 3 days after being struck by lightning, Lu Bu's body was also undergoing tremendous changes. Lu Bu, a college student from the 21st century, is passionate about the 3 kingdoms and spends most of his time reading online novels and playing 3 kingdoms games. Therefore, his academic performance is average, and his job search is challenging. When he went out looking for a job in the pouring rain carrying his resume, he was unfortunately hit by a purple lightning bolt that tore through the sky. Within 3 days, 2 souls battled in the sea of spiritual consciousness in Lu Bu. Finally, the soul from the 21st century, with an extra 1800 years of super information, defeated the soul from the 2nd century, and turned against the enemy. Fortunately, Lu Bu's original memory has not faded, especially his memory of martial arts. With more than 20 years of hard training in practical combat, it has spread throughout his body and become an instinct. The damage caused by that lightning was all borne by the Jujube red horse under Lu Bu's crotch. The Jujube red horse turned into a Wuzhui horse and died on the spot. Fortunately, it was not the red rabbit horse, otherwise he would have died of sadness. That lightning did not cause any harm to Lu Bu's body, but instead strengthened his body, making his muscles denser, his heart and lungs stronger, and his physical energy more abundant. However, this change is not entirely a good thing. The increase in strength may make him, who was originally focused on skills and lacked confidence in strength, more superstitious about his own martial arts. Lu Bu felt inexplicable in his heart. He didn't even know whether he should laugh or cry. Lu Bu's favorite protagonist in playing the 3 Kingdoms game is precisely Lu Bu. With Lu Bu's super powerful force and Lu Bu's own super strong operational ability, he has not encountered any opponents in the game. Lu Bu also dreamed many times of becoming Lu Bu, riding a red rabbit horse and leading 1,000 armies and horses to gallop freely, wielding Fang Tian's painted halberd to kill Cao Cao and Liu Bei, and embracing the kindness and love of Jiao Chan. The scene in his dream was incredibly vivid, making him extremely happy. Lu Bu never thought about truly coming to the chaotic world to become Lu Bu. He would rather be a Taiping dog than a chaotic person. But anyone who can survive in the so-called prosperous era, playing computer games and reading online novels every day, is well-fed, comfortable, and safe. Why do we have to travel to this chaotic world where bones are exposed in the wilderness, and chickens crow for thousands of miles, to witness the terrifying scenes of cannibalism? It's too late to say anything. He has already arrived, and his soul is still passing through. The body that was originally supposed to be shattered long ago, and he can't go back anymore. Alas, forget it, let's settle for it. However, at this time, should we call him Lu Bu or Lu Bu? After careful consideration, Lu Bu realized that although he had the joy of being reborn as a historical celebrity and wanted to make Lu Bu's real name famous throughout the world, he was well aware that in this era, the name of this body must be Lu Bu, not Lu Bu. So, Lu Bu decided that in this time and space of the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty, there would no longer be Lu Bu, only Lu Bu. And this brand new Lu Bu will make up for all the regrets that Lu Bu had when he saw the three kingdoms before. Lu Bu, no, he should be called Lu Bu. At this moment, Bu couldn't believe his ears. What Ding Yuan and Hao Meng had just said was some kind of nonsense, so heartless and unjust. It turned out that old Pai Fu Ding had always pretended to be kind and kind to himself. No wonder he had achieved countless military achievements under his command for 10 years, but only served as the chief clerk in charge of documents. His official position was still under Zhong Yang and Colonel Gao Shun in the Wu Meng class. If it weren't for his extraordinary bravery and deep military loyalty, he would have long been reduced to a useless general. It turns out that Hao Meng, who often flatters himself, is a person with a sweet tongue and a sharp tongue. No wonder he wanted to rebel and kill himself during that period of history. Note 1. Lu Bu's heart was filled with a murderous intent. He wished he could take action immediately and kill these two bastards, but he knew he had just woken up, and there was a slight numbness from lightning all over his body. His hands and feet were not very agile, so the chances of winning were not high if he started immediately. Thinking of this, Bu tightly clenched his fist, gritted his teeth, and couldn't help but be angry and make a sound. It alarmed the two bastards, who knew how they would deal with him. Killing someone and silencing them was light. Bu forced himself to shift his thoughts to how can he do something in this chaotic world? Note 1. During the Warring States period, the name Luoyang began to exist. It is located to the north of the Luo River, and the north of the water is Yang, hence its name Luoyang. During the Qin dynasty, the theory of the 5 elements was prevalent. Emperor Qin Shi Huang deduced based on the principle of the 5 virtues have an end, and believed that Zhou should have the virtue of fire, and Qin should have replaced Zhou with the virtue of water. Therefore, he changed Luoyang to Luoyang. Emperor Guangwu of the Eastern Han dynasty, Lu Xiuding, established his capital in Luoyang and renamed it Luoyang due to the Han dynasty's emphasis on fire and morality. During the Three Kingdoms period, Qiao Wei referred to Wei as the Earth and changed it to Luoyang. For the convenience of writing, it was still called Luoyang at this time. Note 2. In the 4th century BC, the lower reaches of the Yellow River were known as turbid rivers, due to the turbidity of the river water. At the beginning of the 1st century AD, some people pointed out that the river water is heavy and turbid, with a scale of 1 stone and 6 buckets of mud. The Book of Han, which was written in the early Eastern Han dynasty around the 1st century AD, was already known as the Yellow River. According to the Gully Canal Annals, in the Book of Han, China's rivers have a source of hundreds, not to mention the 4 Deus, and the Yellow River is the main source. Note 3. The Book of Later Han states, the envoy Ding Yuan captured thousands of people in Hanoi, burned Mengjin, and illuminated the city, all with the intention of executing eunuchs. According to the Records of the Three Kingdoms and the Book of Later Han, Ding Yuan should have been the governor of Bingzhou at this time, not the Jingzhou governor in Romance of the Three Kingdoms. The Jingzhou governor at this time was Wang Rui, who was later killed by Sun Jian. Later, Dong Zhuo recommended Liu Biao as the governor of Jingzhou. Note 4. In the middle of the night of June in the first year of Jianan, General Hao Meng of Hanoi rebelled and marched into Pai Prefecture under the rule of General Bu. He served outside the hall and loudly called out to attack and join forces, but was not allowed to enter. Bu doesn't know who the antagonist is. He leads his wife straight, his head is bare, and his generals line up from the walls of the chaos. He is appointed as the commander. Chief Gao Shunying, and enters straight through the door. Shun asked, General, are you hiding? Bu Yen said, the sound of children in Hanoi. As the saying goes, this Haomeng is also. Shun and Yen soldiers entered the mansion, with bows and crossbows shooting at the cute crowd. Cute people wander around recklessly, and at dawn, they return to their camp. Meng Jiang Chao turned against Meng and fought against him. Meng stabbed and stabbed Meng, but his nature was like cutting off Meng's arm. Xuanzhua Mengshou, bed layout, sending cloth the records of the three kingdoms. The Book of Wei. The biography of Lu Bu Pei Songji's commentary on The Heroes. Chapter 2. Waiting for good opportunities. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I used to admire Lu Bu's unparalleled martial prowess every time I saw the Three Kingdoms, but I found that his martial prowess was often exploited by people. He was treated as a thug by Ding Yuan, Dong Zhuo, Wang Yun, and Yuan Xiao, who sold their lives for them but achieved nothing. This time, Lu Bu will not be someone else's thug and will use this unparalleled force to subdue more generals for his own use. Every time I read the records of the Three Kingdoms or the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, I admire Zhang Liao's impressive military prowess and bravery in Ziyijin, admire Gao Shun's invincible general style in the camp, admire Chen Gong's repeated attempts to almost eliminate Cao Cao, but I also regret that Zhang Liao, Gao Shun, and Chen Gong were not used again by LV Bu. This time, LV Bu will not miss out on talent. He not only uses Zhang Liao, Gao Shun, and Chen Gong, but also recruits heroes from all over the world to serve him, combining their intelligence and strength, and making a great achievement comparable to the Qin Emperor and Han Wu. Before, when I looked at the Three Kingdoms, I found that LV Bu was brave and had some literary talent, but lacked any political talent. He governed the people with hunger everywhere. Compared to Cao Cao, who pacified the army in food and daxing, LV Bu was not a wise ruler. This time, Lu Bu wanted to support the state to strengthen his own power, and to lower down the Li Shu to look down on all the emperors, becoming a true benevolent ruler, cherishing and loving the people, protecting the Han people from being too poisoned by warlords and disasters, making the five barbarians powerless and chaotic. The Han people also did not have to go through painful national integration again and again. And all of this can only be achieved after eliminating the two people in front of him, but Lu Bu knows that this is not an opportunity yet. He can no longer be the three surname family slave in history, nor can he even let the outside world know that he has eliminated Ding Yuan. He needs to wait for a good opportunity to use the knife to kill and blame others. Only when Ding Yuan is successfully removed and 8,000 soldiers in Bingzhou are successfully controlled, can Lu Bu fully showcase his thousands of years of knowledge in this time and space, allowing the Han nation to always be at the top of the world's nations. After Ding Yuan and Haomeng left the camp, Lu Bu slowly opened his eyes and scanned everything inside. Inside the navy blue coarse cloth tent stands a black wooden frame with a stack of things on top. Upon closer inspection, Lu Bu discovered that it was a bamboo slip with Sun Tzu's military strategy engraved on it. Didn't Kai Luan invent paper? Why are you still using bamboo slips to carve characters into books? LV Bu briefly sorted out his memory and realized that the paper made during the Eastern Han dynasty was very rough and inferior to later generations of grass paper. Writing on it was unclear and very expensive, and people's writing materials were still mainly made of bamboo slips and silk. It seems that I need to improve my papermaking skills earlier, as bamboo slips are too hindering the dissemination of cultural education. There is still something hanging on the wooden frame, like a miniature swing, with a wooden block tied between two cloth ropes. This is actually a stirrup, but it's just a unilateral stirrup, it's still made of wood. It seems that the double-sided iron stirrups relied on by later cavalry did not appear, and during this period, there were no high-bridge saddles or horseshoes. The single-sided stirrups were only used to assist in getting on and off the horse. During the riding process, one still had to grasp the reins tightly and clamp the horse's belly with their legs to prevent themselves from falling off during the galloping process of the horse. However, prolonged horseback riding can easily lead to fatigue, and it is also difficult to effectively use bows and arrows on the back of running horses. In close combat, it is also difficult to use swords and spears as one pleases. Only a few fierce generals can control the horses well and then cut off generals and seize flags. Although Lu Bu really wanted to make bilateral stirrups, high bridge saddles, and horseshoes all at once, he knew very well that when he didn't have tens of thousands of cavalry to make these things, he would only benefit the Xianbei and Xiongnu in the north for nothing. Therefore, he still had to rely on unilateral stirrups to fight with his horse belly sandwiched between them. The reason why Lu Bu is known as a flying general is not only because of his unparalleled martial arts skills, but also because of his unparalleled equestrian skills. The Red Rabbit horse is not something that can be easily subdued by any general. Since there is overwhelming strength temporarily, there is no need to immediately upgrade and transform cavalry equipment. Beside the bed, there is a spear, measuring 1.2 meters in length, made entirely of black iron. The spear head is a sharp spear tip, with crescent-shaped sharp blades on each side, connected to the spear tip through two small branches. A halberd with only one crescent blade is called the Qinglong halberd, and two crescent blades are called the Fangtian halberd, which is decorated with carved carvings, so it is called the Fangtian painted halberd. This heavenly painting halberd combines the functions of light and heavy weapons, and can compete with heavy weapons such as bones, hammers, borers, etc. for strength. It can also compete with light weapons such as spears, guns, and knives for move skills. Lu Bu reached out and caressed the Fang Tian Hua Ji, feeling the cold and murderous aura emanating from the Ji. Suddenly, he felt a sense of security in his heart. It was said that Lu Bu held the Fang Tian Hua Ji and was invincible in the late Han dynasty. As long as the big Ji was in his hand, what would Lu Bu be afraid of? What is missing now is the Red Rabbit horse. Lu Bu knew that Dongzhuo had already captured the sweaty BMW in Xiliang, so he was looking forward to Li Su's arrival. I just don't know, did He Jin dare to enter the palace and be killed by eunuchs now? If He Jin doesn't die, Dongzhuo wouldn't dare to enter the capital recklessly, and Lu Bu wouldn't be able to profit from the chaos. As Lu Bu was about to fall asleep, he heard a heavy voice from the camp. Qin Yi, has General Lu woken up? Although Lu Bu is only a chief clerk now, not even a colonel, let alone a general, because he is both brave and invincible in Bingzhou, his colleagues and subordinates call him a general. Perhaps in everyone's minds, he will eventually become a general on the same side. Lu Bu's personal guard Qin Yi quickly replied, Colonel, just now Lord Ding and Captain Hao went in and said that General Lu has not yet woken up. The person let out a deep sigh and spoke in a gloomy tone, if General Lu has something to do, I really don't know where my Bingzhou army should go. Qin Yi, please take good care of yourself and don't let idle people disturb General Lu. Lu Bu knew from the sound that the person who had just arrived was Gao Shun, who had always been loyal to him. He intended to let Gao Shun in, but the fact that he woke up shortly after Ding Yuan and Hao Meng left would be detrimental to him. Therefore, he temporarily closed his eyes and lay quietly there. After a while, another clear and impatient voice sounded outside the tent. Qin Yi, has my brother-in-law woken up? Qin Yi replied, not yet. Do you want to inform the general's wife? The person thought for a moment and said, wait a few more days before telling my cousin. It's better not to tell my cousin that she's not in good health. Don't let her worry too much. I believe my brother-in-law is lucky and will be safe and sound. Lu Bu knew that outside the door was Wei Su, the cousin of his wife Yan. Although he had betrayed him in history, at that time Lu Bu was already on the brink of despair, and he couldn't be blamed for Wei Su's choice. At this time, Wei Su was absolutely loyal to Lu Bu due to his hometown friendship and kinship. Lu Bu also had great trust in him and often assigned Gao Shun's troops to Wei Su's command. In the future, Lu Bu will restrict the use of Wei Suhui, but he still needs to use it. After all, Lu Bu currently does not have many outstanding generals under his command except for Gao Shun and Zhang Liao. In this way, except for Zhang Liao and Zhang Yang who are now recruiting soldiers in Bingzhou, other generals such as Qing Lian, Song Xian, Shui Lan, Li Feng, and others have all come to visit, and Lv Bu has also closed his eyes and pretended to be unconscious. Lu Bu vaguely remembered that Ho Cheng from the 8th Cavalry was still under the command of Chen Lu's prefect Zhang Miao, while the guerrilla warfare expert Zhang Ba from the 8th Cavalry was still under the command of the governor of Shuzhou, Tao Qian. It was also unclear whether there was a chance in the future to bring these two people under his command. Chapter 3. Persuading Ding Yuan to enter the palace. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the evening of August 24, when Ding Yuan returned to the military camp from Luoyang to visit Lu Bu pretended to wake up suddenly and said, "My adoptive father, what's wrong with you, my child?" Lu Bu called out for his adoptive father, but his heart was filled with murderous intent. After getting rid of Ding Yuan, he would not let anyone be his own adoptive father anymore, and he wanted to be someone else's adoptive father. Ding Yuan was surprised to see Lu Bu wake up, but he immediately pretended to be kind. "My son, you're awake, that's great. 2 days ago, you set fire to Mengjin, fearing that it might have angered the heavens. You were struck by lightning, and your Juju-bred horse was killed on the spot, but you kept sleeping. The generals thought that you would never wake up, but who knew that after only 3 days, you would wake up? It's really a blessing from heaven." Lu Bu thought to himself that it was your old man Ding Yuan who had deluded me into dying, but used his generals as a shield. Such despicable behavior is no wonder Bingzhou. The soldiers were not satisfied with the old man's oral administration. Lu Bu grew increasingly disgusted with the seemingly upright old man in front of him, but his face smiled and he said, "I see, it's all thanks to the protection of his adoptive father." Ding Yuan turned his head and said to Qin Yi, "Gather all the generals to come." In no time, generals such as Gao Shun, Wei Su, Song Xian, and Cheng Lian all arrived at Lu Bu's camp with great joy. Lu Bu glanced at Hao Meng and found that this scumbag's face was also full of joy. He was really good at pretending. With the help of Qin Yi, Lv Bu slowly sat up from the bed, put on his war robe, and then slowly got off the bed. When his feet stepped on the ground, Lv Bu found that his body had recovered, even stronger, and there seemed to be endless strength in his body. With a little effort, deep footprints appeared on the hard ground he walked through. Lu Bu bowed deeply to the generals and said, "Thanks to the care of all the brothers, Bu is safe and sound. Bu would like to thank you here." The generals also quickly returned their gifts. Lu Bu straightened his waist and realized that he was really tall, probably over 9 feet away. No wonder the book said he was extremely tall, meaning long and big. With such a physique and a body of divine power, it was no wonder that Red Rabbit and Malay horses needed to ride to unleash their full combat power. Ordinary horses couldn't bear it. Lu Bu stood in front of Ding Yuan, a head taller than him, and had to lower his head to ask Ding Yuan, "My adoptive father, have there been any unusual changes in Luoyang City in these 3 days? I wonder what effect that fire has had." Ding Yuan was a bit confused. Although Lu Bu was well versed in literature and ink, he had always been indifferent to political affairs. He did whatever he asked him to do, never asking why. Why was he so concerned about the situation in Luoyang this time? Although he was confused, he also understood the need to answer Lu Bu's question, because the generals of Bingzhou were not sure why He Jin wanted them to set fire to Mengjin. Our fire was not in vain. The treacherous officials who burned it were frightened. They cried and begged the Empress Dowager, saying they were willing to give up power and only wanted to bypass their dog's life. The Empress Dowager just ordered the general to enter the palace tomorrow morning to discuss. Once the general entered the palace, he should be able to capture the corrupt officials without bloodshed, and from then on, the world will be peaceful. When Lu Bu heard that He Jin was about to enter the palace, he knew that the curtain of the Three Kingdoms era had slowly begun. This is destined to belong to his era. Bu recalled history for a moment and pondered it in his heart before saying to Ding Yuan, my adoptive father, since the plan of the Grand General to lead foreign troops to the capital to kill traitors has already been known by the traitors, the edict issued by the Empress Dowager in the palace is also very suspicious. How can we know if the traitors jumped over the wall in a hurry and took the opportunity to kill the Grand General? Ding Yuan was stunned. He still wanted to rely on He Jin to climb to the high position of San Gong, but didn't want He Jin to die so early. He suddenly said, I have some truth to say. I will be promoted to the governor of Bingzhou and the cavalry captain, and then to the position of Jin Wu. I rely entirely on the support of the general. How can I stand idly by when this general is in trouble? In my son's opinion, what should I do? Originally, Ding Yuan had already been transferred from being the governor of Bingzhou to being the governor of Jinwu. Jinwu was responsible for overseeing the imperial guard and safeguarding the safety of the capital palace, equivalent to the commander of the later capital garrison. With this title, many things would be easier to handle. Bu was secretly pleased, but pretended to be righteous and domineering. My adoptive father, since the general has already obeyed the decree, my adoptive father must immediately bring elite soldiers into the city and go to guard the general in case of any unforeseen circumstances. Ding Yuan said helplessly, Colonel Yuan Xiao of Sili has selected 500 elite soldiers and asked General Yuan Shu of Huban to lead them to guard the general. Moreover, without the general's orders, I dare not lead troops into the city casually. Bu felt very contemptuous of Ding Yuan, who was ambitious but also a cowardly old man. He lowered his voice and threatened, saying, my adoptive father, although Yuan Shu is the commander of the Tiger Bend Forbidden Army, he can only protect the outside world and cannot enter the palace without permission. If the general enters alone, and if he is harmed by the treacherous eunuch, there will be no one in the Yuan family's 4th generation and 3 nobles who can match him. Yuan Wei's uncle and nephew will surely take over the court. My adoptive father has never had much friendship with the Yuan family, and my adoptive father has not made any achievements in killing the treacherous eunuch. In case Yuan Xiao fails to make any contribution, when the time comes to impeach my adoptive father on the grounds of burning Meng Jin, how will my adoptive father resist it? Bu saw a cold sweat rising from Ding Yuan's head and knew that Ding Yuan, who came from a humble family and was promoted through rough martial arts, Note 1, was very afraid of the children of the aristocratic family like Yuan Xiao. Since the coercion was completed, he began to lure them. My adoptive father, who is in charge of supervising the imperial army and safeguarding the safety of the capital and palace, has the power to lead troops into the city. The army of Bingzhou can wait for the opportunity to approach the palace. In case of any changes in the palace, we can also quickly adapt. My adoptive father, how can the thousands of Shiyuan new army led by Yuan Xiao and others be as good as the 8,000 iron soldiers of Bingzhou? Writing. When the adoptive father kills the treacherous eunuchs and assists the young emperor in ascending to the throne, achieving this extraordinary feat, it is not difficult to rank as the 3rd prince, but why not become a great general? Ding Yuan asked skeptically, what if He Jin was not harmed by the corrupt officials? Bu laughed and said, my adoptive father, have you forgotten one of your important responsibilities as Zijinwu? Ding Yuan frowned and asked, what responsibilities? Bu pointed to the distant city of Luoyang and said, Ji Jinwu patrols the palace 3 times a month to prevent and stop floods, fires, and other unexpected accidents outside the palace. This time, the treacherous eunuch intends to plot against the general, which is a very serious accident. Even if there is nothing wrong with him, we will lead troops to go, and the general will remember our loyal rescue, not only innocent, but also meritorious. Speaking of which, Bu remembered another thing. My adoptive father knew that besides recruiting Dong Zhuo from the Western Liang dynasty to enter the capital, why did he also recruit his adoptive father to lead the troops and horses of the Bingzhou region to enter the capital? Upon seeing Ding Yuan shake his head in confusion, Bu released himself, saying, General, he comes from a humble family and is a butcher. Empowering aristocratic families such as Yuan Xiao was a last resort to win over them. Now that Yuan Xiao, Cao Cao, Chun Yuqiong, and others are in charge of most of the troops of the 8th Army in Xiyuan, they are already unstoppable. Dong Zhuo, who was recommended by Yuan Xiao to enter the capital, is of the same family as Empress Dowager Dong, who was originally killed by He Jin. He Jin was confused by Yuan Xiao for a while, but now he realizes it's too late to regret it. That's why he temporarily summoned his adoptive father's army to Luo. Yang and the Yuan family were fighting against each other. In fact, He Jin believed Yuan Xiao's words and recruited Dong Zhuo in front and Ding Yuan in the back. On the one hand, it was because Dong Zhuo wanted to see the situation in the capital clearly and did not move when he arrived at Mianqi, Hansheng County. Ding Yuan's journey from Bingzhou to Luoyang was closer, so Ding Yuan arrived first. Lubu knew that Ding Yuan felt very sad when he was treated as a chess piece, so he continued to fuel the fire and said, "So Dong Zhuo led a 100,000-strong army in Xiliang. If it weren't for his wolf-like ambition, why would he remain motionless in Hansheng Mianqi?" When Dong Zhuo's army entered Luoyang, the 100,000-strong army shook the court and the 8,000 soldiers in Bingzhou could not match us. Dong Zhuo, on the other hand, divided the court from Yuan Xiaoping, and on the other hand, he himself monopolized the power. In order to control the court, Dong Zhuo would definitely use his trusted generals to occupy the important position of Xi Jinwu. But now, He Jin is trying to win over Dong Zhuo and exempt his adoptive father. The governor of Bingzhou appointed Dong Zhuo as the governor of Bingzhou. Dong Zhuo had already stationed his son in Luan Fu in Hedong County. At that time, his adoptive father could not compete with Yuan Xiao and Dong Zhuo in Luoyang, and he could not return to Bingzhou. The world is so vast that there may be no place for his adoptive father to stand. Ding Yuan had never thought so much before. After being pierced by Lv he was both shocked and frightened. He broke out in a cold sweat and his face turned extremely pale. "So, let me show you what to do now, my son." The generals were also frightened by Lv's words and saluted one after another. "General Lv, please guide the maze." Note 1. Ding originally came from a humble family and was a rough person with martial courage and good at riding and shooting. As an official in the southern county, he never hesitates to accept orders, and when there are urgent police officers, he often pursues bandits and prisoners in front of them. Cutting knowledge books is rarely used by officials. The governor of Bingzhou was relocated, Book of Later Han. Chapter 4. Entering the Palace to Grab Classics. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing everyone's pale faces, Lubu burst out laughing to ease their nervousness and fear. "Everyone, there's no need to worry. The plan for now is to enter Luoyang City first and see if He Jin has been executed. Then we can adapt to the situation. No matter how dangerous the situation may be, I, Lubu, will do my best to ensure the safety of our soldiers in Bingzhou." The soldiers used to admire Lv's martial arts skills, but now they are even more impressed by his strategic guidance. Some even have a good idea in their hearts that General Lv should be the ruler of our Bingzhou. Ding Yuan saw that the general's admiration for Lubu increased, and his jealousy towards Lubu deepened in his heart. That evening, Ding Yuan left hundreds of infantry to guard the Zhaopingjin camp, and mobilized 8,000 cavalry to quietly approach Luoyang City. Ding Yuan, as a high-ranking official, pretended to meet the general in secret and led hundreds of elite cavalry, including Lv, into the city. After entering the city, Lv led Gao Shun, Wei Su, and others to quickly control the north gate. 8,000 cavalry from Bingzhou, divided into several dozen or so units, wrapped in horse mouths and hooves, quietly entered the city of Luoyang. Ding Yuan, as a military governor, was responsible for conducting a detailed investigation into the situation in Luoyang City and was well versed in the deployment of forbidden guards within the city. He led his cavalry from Bingzhou to disperse and hide in the desolate forests of Luoyang City, waiting for any changes in the palace. The next morning, he entered the palace to meet the Empress Dowager. He believed that military and political power was in his hands and that eunuchs would not dare to harm him. Therefore, he refused to listen to the advice of the chief clerk Chen Lin and others and insisted on entering the palace. Yuan Xiao saw that this damn person had gone to die, and he no longer advised him. He Jin walked into the palace with his head held high and his chest held high. At the entrance of the Jiada Hall, eunuchs such as Zhang Rang and Duan Gui rushed out to surround He Jin. Zhang Rang scolded He Jin and said, "What's the crime of Empress Dowager Dong? Are you going to poison her? On the day of Empress Dowager Dong's funeral, you didn't come because of illness. You were originally just a butcher. It was us who recommended your sister to the emperor that gave you your current glory and wealth. You didn't want to repay kindness and instead wanted to harm her." He Jin quickly fled, but was locked down by the eunuchs at all palace gates. The armed young eunuchs who were ambushed rushed out and attacked him. He Jin cut it into 2 pieces. Yuan Xiao and others waited outside the palace gate for a long time without seeing anyone enter or exit. They shouted outside the palace gate, "Please get on the carriage, General." Zhang Rang threw He Jin's head out of the wall and forced Empress Dowager He to issue a decree. He Jin has rebelled and has been executed. All other threats will be forgiven. Yuan Xiao regarded the imperial edict as farting and shouted loudly, "Eunuchs murder ministers. Those who punish evil parties come to assist in the battle." General He Jin, Wu Huang, set fire outside the gate of Qingsuo. Ding Yuan saw the flames from afar and was overjoyed. He raised his sword and shouted, "Kill the eunuchs. Avenge the general." 8,000 cavalry soldiers from Bingzhou were divided into 8 streams, like an iron current, instantly encircling the palace. The soldiers of Bingzhou were each majestic and powerful, with a murderous aura, which frightened Yuan Xiao and Yuan Shu brothers into anger and tongue-twitching. Yuan Shu shouted sternly, "Ding Yuan, do you want to rebel?" The Yuan brothers had never taken Ding Yuan as a martial artist seriously. In their original plan, He Jin would die if he entered the palace, and He Jin would die if he did. The Lu Han royal family only had orphans and widows left. Their uncle Yuan Weigui was the grand tutor in charge of the Shangshu affairs, so they could put the Empress Dowager and the Empress Dowager under control and monopolize the court. This great Khan's world would become their Yuan families, and they could easily handle Ding Yuan. Ding Yuan saw the expressions of the Yuan brothers and compared them with Lu Bu's speculation about the Yuan brothers. He no longer had any fear of the Yuan brothers in his heart. He laughed with a broadsword and said, "I have been ordered by the general to execute the eunuchs. The name is correct. What is rebellion? On the contrary, it is your attack on the palace city that is a great rebellion. Do you want me, the persistent Jinwu, to bring you to justice?" Cao Cao and Cao Munda saw that Ding Yuan's 8,000 iron cavalry was unbeatable, and they also saw that the Western Garden new army under his command had not been in battle for a long time. If it had to be fought, they would have to lose. They walked forward with a smile and said, "Lord Ding, please don't be impatient. Since you and I are both avenging the generals and killing eunuchs, why bother fighting for morale? It's better to first kill all the corrupt eunuchs before we talk." Lu Bu followed behind Ding Yuan, squinting his eyes as he looked at the short and chubby man with a smile. Note 1. Feng Tianhua's halberd trembled slightly with the boundless murderous aura in his heart. Lu Bu really wanted to immediately kill this destined enemy, but he knew that he needed the guy in front of him to contact the Kanto lords to resist Dong Zhuo's 100,000 strong army and resist Yuan Xiao in the future. If he killed Yuan Xiao and Cao Cao now, from a distance, he would offend all the aristocrats in the world. It would be difficult for him to move forward in the future. From a nearby perspective, no one can help him resist Dong Zhuo's army. Ding Yuan turned to look at Lu Bu, who shook his head lightly. Ding Yuan understood what Lu Bu meant and turned to laugh at Cao Cao, Yuan Xiao, and others, saying, Since we are all sincere in serving our country, let's unite our forces and kill the eunuchs with all our might. Yuan Shu saw that Ding Yuan had no ill intentions and was afraid that Ding Yuan would make too many achievements in killing eunuchs. He took the lead and led troops to attack the palace gate. When he saw eunuchs, regardless of age, he killed them all. Yuan Xiao and Cao Cao also led their close troops from the Shiyuan new army into the palace, and Lv Bu also divided his troops into several routes to attack the palace. After the Jujube red horse he had ridden was struck to death by lightning, Lv Bu finally found a green-maned horse to ride on. Although the green-maned horse was a good horse, it was also a bit difficult to lift Lv Bu, a strong and heavy general. Fortunately, Lv Bu has not encountered any fierce people like Guan Yu and Zhang Fei fighting against him now. Lu Bu rode a green-maned horse and galloped towards the interior of the palace. When he saw the panicked eunuchs running around, Lu Bu felt sorry for them. He didn't even bother to lift the Fangtian painted halberd. Lu Bu was well aware that Emperor Ling of Han was not a completely incompetent ruler. The reason why he appointed eunuchs was actually to use internal officials to counter the monopoly of external aristocratic families on the court, which was the same as many years later when the Ming dynasty emperor appointed eunuchs to fight against the Qinglu Donglin party. These eunuchs are actually pawns of the emperor. Lu Bu saw an old eunuch in front of him, with a plump head and a robe and jade belt, struggling to run, and a few small eunuchs supporting him, seemingly a big fish. Lu Bu galloped his horse, and the green-maned horse rushed to the front of the eunuch in just a few breaths. Lu Bu raised his Fangtian painted halberd and shouted sternly in front of the man, "Eunuch, what is your name?" Several young eunuchs next to him were quite loyal to the old eunuch. They all raised their swords and guns to protect him, but were quickly executed by Lv Bu's personal guards Qin Yi, Chen Wei, Li He, Yuan, and others, leaving only the old eunuch kneeling on the ground trembling and begging for mercy. "My name is Zhao Zhong, General. Please spare your life." Lu Bu nodded, remembering that among the 10 trusted attendants of Emperor Ling, Zhang Rang and Zhao Zhong were the most highly valued. Emperor Ling of Han openly said, "Zhang Chang is my lord, and Zhao Chang is my mother." Lv Bu shouted. "You know where the registered residence, terrain, laws and other books and classics are. Take us quickly." Zhao Zhong was extremely frightened when he saw the painted halberd pointing directly at his throat. He didn't even think why Lu Bu wanted him to take those things with him and hurriedly lead the way ahead. When he arrived at the palace where the ancient books were stored, Lv Bu ordered Chen Wei to lead 200 soldiers who were slightly literate to check the books and files about the national registered residence, terrain, laws and regulations one by one, and then move them to the carriage in categories. Lu Bu ordered the greedy Wei Su to lead 800 soldiers to plunder all the gold, jewelry, cultural relics, and antiques in the palace. Before entering the palace, Lv Bu sent someone in advance to forcibly requisition carriages from merchants in Luoyang City, and obtained hundreds of carriages. In addition to the original hundreds of carriages in the palace, they were combined together to bring all these items back to the Bingzhou army camp. Lu Bu didn't want Dongzhuo to destroy the valuable items that couldn't be moved at once, so he had someone dig a pit and bury them. When Lu Bu had people loot the imperial palace, each palace was guarded by someone to prevent Yuan Xiao's party from seeing him. He also arrested several eunuchs in the palace to play the game of chasing, killing, and crying to numb Yuan Xiao and others. When Yuan Xiao's party woke up and began looting the palace, the convoy of the Bingzhou army had already returned to the camp. Note 1. The age of the Wei family, says. King Wu has a short and small appearance, while the gods are handsome. Note 2. Kyushu Spring and Autumn Annals. Byusu envoys Qin Yi, Chen Wei, Li He, and others pretended to be palace gate guards, holding long halberds. Zhuo arrives at the palace gate, and He and others use a long halberd to carry Zhuo's chariot or fork his horse. Zhuo exclaimed in surprise, and Busushi was armored in his clothes, wielding a spear, and immediately stabbed Zhuo in response, falling into the carriage. Chapter 5. Saving Empress Dowager He. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. After Lubu issued the order to clean the imperial palace, he saw eunuchs such as Zhang Rang, Duan Gui, Chao Jia, and Ho Lan taking away Empress Dowager He, Crown Prince Lu Bian, and Prince Chen Lu Xia, preparing to run from Fudao to the North Palace and quickly rush to rescue them. At this moment, Shangshu Lu Ji resigned from his official position and did not leave the capital. Seeing the palace incident, he quickly arrived with his family soldiers. Lu Ji is a Confucian general who excels in both literature and martial arts, but his literary skills are not as good as Jing Xian and his martial arts are not as good as Huang Fu Song. It is not that he lacks talent, but rather that his luck is not good. Ultimately, it is the fault of eunuchs, and his hatred towards eunuchs is far greater than that of ordinary literati. In the first year of Zhongping, Lu Ji was appointed as the general of Bizhonglang, leading 5 officers of the Northern Army to defeat Zhang Jiao's army, forcing him to retreat to Guangzhou. Lu Ji surrounded Zhang Jiao in Guangzhou city with far fewer troops than Zhang Jiao, and built a cloud ladder to attack the city. It was about to be attacked. At this time, Emperor Ling of Han sent the eunuch Zhuofeng to the front line for inspection. Zhuofeng demanded bribes from Lu Ji, but Lu Ji refused. Zhuofeng falsely accused Emperor Ling of saying, "The bandits of Guangzhou are easily exposed, and Lu Zhonglang is stationed to rest the army, waiting for heavenly punishment." As a result, Lu Ji was imprisoned. Fortunately, Huang Fu Song and Zhu Ju took advantage of the great efforts to break the yellow scarf and requested to be exonerated, which cleared Lu Ji's injustice. However, he could only sit and see Huang Fu Song and Zhu Ju achieve immortal success. Lu Ji saw from afar that Duan Gui, one of the 10 constant attendants, was rushing to flee. Standing 8 feet and 2 inches tall, Lu Ji, with his deep hatred towards the eunuch in his chest, prepared to shout loudly to stop Duan Gui. However, he heard a louder voice. "You treacherous eunuch and traitor, dare not rob the Empress Dowager." Lu Ji looked around and saw an extraordinary young warrior with hair tied on his head and a golden crown, dressed in a colorful battle robe, wearing Tangyanai armor and a lion barbarian treasure belt tied around his waist. He immediately wielded a more than 10-foot square drawn halberd, and with a bow and arrow in his hand, aimed at the eunuch Duan Gui, who was holding the Empress Dowager. He shot an arrow that hit Duan Gui's throat, and Duan Gui died on the spot. Empress Dowager He quickly jumped out of the window of the duplex attic without the coercion of Duan Yi. The general saw that Empress Dowager He was about to jump out of the window and quickly rode his horse over. With a twist of his tiger waist and an extension of his ape arm, he firmly attached Empress Dowager He to his horse. Lu Ji took a few steps closer, and upon closer inspection, it turned out that this person was none other than Lu Bu, the chief clerk under the command of the governor of Bingzhou, Ding Yuan. Lu Ji had a chance encounter with Lu Bu, who had gone to assist Zhang Jiao during the campaign. Lu Bu knew that Empress Dowager He, who was so frightened that her face turned pale, was the sister of He Jin and He Miao. Her real name was He Lian, and she was the daughter of a butcher. She came from a humble background and did not have the qualifications to be elected. However, in order to change the situation, her father, He Zhen, bribed the 10 permanent attendants responsible for selecting women from all over the world, and he sure was able to enter the palace. Emperor Ling doted on the beautiful and charming He Lian. Shortly after He Lian entered the palace, he gave birth to Prince Lu Bian for Emperor Ling. Although Emperor Ling had obtained several princes, they all died young one after another. In order to avoid the premature death of Prince Lu Bian, he placed him in foster care at a Taoist family, and at the same time, he conferred the title of noble on the He family. Later, He Gairen's mother adopted her son Gui and was able to succeed the Song family. Father He Zhen, who was originally a butcher, was granted the title of Marquis of Wuyang Xuanda, while brother He Jin, who was idle all day, also obtained an official position as a result. After the death of Emperor Ling, the original Empress He was promoted to Empress Dowager He. Empress Dowager He is in her early 30s, not only beautiful and charming, but also somewhat mature and plump. In addition, she is the mother of a country, so noble that Lu Bu's fingers are moved. She really wants to find a palace to solve this mature woman immediately. Playing with palace maids is too childish, only playing with the emperor's mother is satisfying. However, this thought only went through my mind once. Lu Ji, an old man, was still standing not far away with a long spear. Besides, Lv Bu had long heard of Empress Dowager He, a woman with a strong jealousy heart. Since she was appointed as the Empress, all the palace maids who had been favored by Emperor Ling of Han and had 6 armor were poisoned by her. She even poisoned the mother of the future Emperor Xian of Han, Lu Xie, Wang Meiren. Fortunately, Empress Dowager Dong, the mother of Emperor Ling of Han, protected him, and Lu Xie saved his life. And now, Empress Dowager Dong has also been poisoned to death by He Jin. If it weren't for Empress Dowager Dongzhua's brother Dongzhua entering the capital, Lu Xie's child would soon have died. Lu Bu is not interested in earning such a woman, but occasionally playing around is okay. The most important thing is that she still has practical value. Lu Bu had no time to feel the grace of Empress Dowager He. He helped Empress Dowager He, who was trembling in his arms, stabilize her and let her sit upright on a horse. Then, he jumped off the horse, bent down, and pretended to be anxious and fearful. Lu Bu, the chief clerk under the command of Ding Yuan of Zhijinwu, kowtowed to the Empress Dowager. Please forgive the delay in the arrival of Bu's help. Empress Dowager He stabilized her mind for a moment before saying softly, please calm down, Lv Qing. Thanks to your timely rescue, Empress Dowager He was able to escape the danger. After the turmoil is resolved, Empress Dowager He will surely receive a heavy reward. Lu Bu originally did not like the ritual of kneeling and bowing, especially when bowing to a woman. When Empress Dowager He said she was flat, she immediately stood up. Empress Dowager He's beautiful eyes flickered as she carefully examined the hero in front of her. Seeing Lu Bu's tall and strong figure and handsome face, a glimmer of light flashed in her beautiful eyes. I see that you are exceptionally talented and skilled in archery and horse riding. Why did you abdicate to the position of chief clerk? Lv Bu smiled bitterly and said, Wei Chen's father was just a county lieutenant and passed away early. Although Wei Chen led his troops to repeatedly defeat the southern Xiongnu, Huang Jin, Qianghu, and Xianbei, beheading them for thousands of steps. However, due to his humble family background, all his achievements were erased by the higher authorities, and he had no choice but to settle in the lower Liao. Although Empress Dowager He has lived in the palace for a long time, she has also met many nobles and ministers, and has some ability to recognize people. She can see that Lv Bu did not lie. He had experienced countless swords, and bloody storms before he had a murderous aura that could capture people. Empress Dowager He glanced at Yuan Xiao and Yuan Shu, who recklessly entered the palace and killed and set fire to the imperial power, and then at the heroic, loyal, and respectful Lu Bu. Suddenly, she had an idea and put on a sincere look of regret for Lu Bu. You have strong skills and many military achievements. Why don't you get close to Yuan Xiao, Yuan Shu, and others, who are the 4th generation and 3rd Duke of the Yuan family? Note 1. There are many old officials from the same family, and his uncle Yuan Wei, as the Grand Tutor Lu Shangshu, is in charge of the court's politics. If they recommend him, you will definitely have a prosperous official position. Her clever question was to know if Lu Bu had any connection with Yuan Xiao's party. If there were any connections, even if Lu Bu was handsome and talented, she would not consider it. A hint of contempt flashed across Lv Bu's face. I come from a humble background and have shallow abilities, so I cannot enter the eyes of their noble children. The implication was that I have nothing to do with them. Empress Dowager He was overjoyed, but her face remained indifferent. She turned to ask, have Lord Ding Yuan ever recommended you to Grand Tutor Yuan? Lu Bu knew that Empress Dowager He was actually asking if there was any connection between Ding Yuan and the Yuan family. He said, Lord Ding came from a humble family and was originally a small official in Wan County. As an old friend of the general's hometown, he relied heavily on the support of the general. From a small official, Huang gradually rose to the rank of county magistrate, county governor, and eventually became a magistrate. Empress Dowager he understood that Ding Yuan was a confidant of He Jin and had nothing to do with the Yuan family. She immediately relaxed her mind halfway and asked LV Bu another question. I wonder if Chief LV can command the Iron Cavalry under Lord Ding's command. Lu Bu couldn't fathom the purpose behind Empress Dowager He's question, so he replied straightforwardly, although I am the chief clerk, in battle, I am the vanguard and fearless, and the soldiers of Bingzhou only follow my lead. Empress Dowager he received a satisfactory answer, with a smile on her face, and loudly proclaimed, Empress Dowager Lu Bu was appointed as the Guanglu Xun, in charge of palace guards, leading the armies of the Yuan and Huban under her command, killing treacherous officials, rescuing the emperor and King Qianlu, suppressing the rebellion, and rectifying the palace restrictions without any mistakes. Upon seeing Empress Dowager He's expression, LV Bu knew that this woman not only wanted to repay her kindness, but also might have taken a liking to her. Moreover, her biggest support, He Jin, had died, and she had no trusted followers. She had no choice but to support herself, a martial arts general from a humble background, to fight against powerful officials such as Yuan Xiao, so she spared no effort to win herself over with her high position as one of the 9 ministers. Note 1. The Yuan family went from their ancestor Yuanan to Sikong and Situ. Yuan and son Yuan Jing was Sikong, Yuan Jing's son Yuan Tang was Sikong and Situ Taiwei, Yuan Tang's son Yuan Feng also went to Sikong, and Yuan Feng's brother Yuan Wei also went to Situ and Taifu. Among the 4 generations, there were as many as 5 people who held the position of the 3 princes, hence they were known as the 4 generations and 3 princes, and there were many old officials throughout the world. Chapter 6. Ren Guanglu Xun. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Shangshu Lu Ji just saw that Empress Dowager he and LV Bu were going to talk about something, so he stood in the distance holding a spear to guard it. Suddenly, he heard Empress Dowager he's loudly issuing a decree, and hurriedly knelt down. General LV has made great contributions in killing traitors and saving Empress Dowager, but he was suddenly promoted from the chief clerk to the 9 ministers. I am afraid that the people in the court and the public will not be satisfied, and I am afraid it will be detrimental to General LV. I also request the Empress Dowager to retract the decree. Lu Bu secretly praised in his heart that the old man Lu Ji really knows how to speak. If it were for those bastards like Yuan Shu, he might have cursed on the spot and said, how can I be the 9 Qing, my humble son? No matter what intentions Lu Ji had, he was able to help Lu Bu get rid of the job he didn't want to do. Lu Bu sincerely thanked Lu Ji with a bow. Although Empress Dowager he has never liked this upright minister, she remembered his sincerity in protecting the country and did not want to make things difficult for him. She frowned and said, so, with the intention of Lord Lu, what reward should we give to Lu Bu? The AI family does not want their courtiers to think that the AI family is a harsh, stingy, ungrateful Empress Dowager. When Lu Ji was attacking Huang Jin, he once led Ding Yuan. At that time, Lu Bu was already under Ding Yuan's command. Lu Ji knew Lu Bu's bravery and also knew that he came from the border area of Jiuyuan. He had made great contributions in fighting against the southern Xiongnu and Xinbei, but unfortunately, he was mostly not reported to the court by Ding Yuan, so he was relegated to the position of chief clerk. Lu Ji didn't want Lu Bu to waste his talent guarding the palace, and also thought of the chaos caused by the Black Mountain Bandits, White Wave Bandits, Southern Xiongnu, and Xinbei in Bingzhou. He thought of a suitable position. General LV was originally from the 9 plains of the border areas, known for his knowledge of border affairs, and was skilled in archery and horsemanship. He was brave and skilled in battle, with the courage of 10,000 soldiers, and his divine power intimidated the border areas. Since the passing of General Huang Fugue, the current general of the Du Liao, Geng Ji, was unconscious and incompetent, and could only sit and watch the Xiongnu, Wuhuan, and Xinbei harass the border areas, burning, killing, and looting without any wrongdoing. If General LV were promoted to the rank of Du Liao, he would be invincible. General Liao, he must be able to defend the country's borders well. Lu Buba couldn't help but stay away from the melee between Dong Zhuo and the feudal lords in the Kanto region that followed. Lu Ji's words hit the nail on the head. Without waiting for Empress Dowager He to speak, he bowed and thanked Empress Dowager He, saying, "Thank you for your grace. I will be loyal to the country and die with all my might." Upon hearing LV Bu's words, Lu Ji couldn't help but brighten his eyes. He was loyal to the country and devoted himself to the cause of death. It seemed that he underestimated LV Bu. He had such literary talent and loyalty aspirations, and he should continue to support this younger generation in the future. But he didn't know that the word loyal to the country, in Lu Bu's dialect did not refer to the Lu Han dynasty, but to the country represented by the Han people in the world. Empress Dowager He was defeated by Lu Bu, and her face turned red with anger. Okay, I will appoint you as the general of Du Liao. But before you take office, I will temporarily assume the position of Guanglu Xun and guard the palace for the AI family to prevent some inconspicuous servants from breaking in and killing people and setting fire. Empress Dowager He angrily looked into the distance. Yuan Xiao, Yuan Shu, and others were indiscriminately killing eunuchs, and even setting fire to the palace in order to eliminate the hidden eunuchs. Lu Ji was taken aback. LV Bu was Ding Yuan's adopted son. If LV Bu were appointed as Guanglu Xun to oversee the palace defense, and Ding Yuan was appointed as Jinwu to oversee the defense of the capital, if Ding Yuan had any ulterior motives, it would be uncontrollable. This woman's vision was truly terrifying, so she knelt down and said, Guanglu Xun was originally held by the Grand General. Now that the Grand General has been harmed by eunuchs, the armies under Guanglu Xun have no heads, and it is impossible to ensure the safety of the palace. For the sake of the present, General He Miao, the cavalry general, can be invited to serve as Guanglu Xun. After Lu Ji's words, Lu Bu suddenly remembered that during the Eastern Han dynasty, there were three major garrison systems in the capital: Guanglu Xun, Wei Wei, and Zijinwu. Guanglu Xun, in charge of palace security and personally safeguarding the safety of the emperor and ***, is known as the inner captain. The guard is in charge of the southern army, the palace gate guards, guarding the palace, and is responsible for the day and night patrols and inspection of the palace gate, also known as a lieutenant. Ji Jinwu was responsible for overseeing the imperial guard and safeguarding the safety of the capital and palaces. The emperor also had to be responsible for ceremonial guards and guards when traveling, and was known as the Wai Wei. Under the Guanglu Xun, there are 7 divisions, namely the 5 senses middle general, left middle general, right middle general, Huban middle general, and Yulin middle general, as well as the Yulin left supervisor and Yulin right supervisor. It seems that the position of Guanglu Xun is not only for the royal family to guard their homes and courtyards, but also to take advantage of the military power of the Tiger Ben Army and the Feathered Forest Army in the Forbidden Army. For LV Bu, who is determined to find an opportunity to independence from Ding Yuan, Guanglu Xun is really a good position. However, the old man Lu Ji has sufficient reasons to oppose it, and LV Bu has nothing to say. As soon as Lu Ji finished speaking, he heard a loud shout. He Miao conspired to harm my brother, let's kill him together. Lu Bu and his companions turned their eyes and saw that it was Wu Quang, a general of He Jin. They were dissatisfied with He Jin's half-brother, He Miao, who was close to eunuchs and betrayed his elder brother. They led their soldiers to chop He Miao into pieces of meat. Empress Dowager He was inexplicably sad and angry, with her phoenix eyes wide open. She pointed at Wu Quang and said to LV Bu, General LV, go and eliminate Wu Quang, this rebel. I will appoint you as the Grand General. Empress Dowager He was not yet deeply saddened by He Jin's death because He Jin and she were siblings of the same father and mother, while she and He Miao were siblings of the same father and mother. Lu Ji immediately knelt down and said, the Empress Dowager should not kill any meritorious officials due to her momentary anger. He Miao is indeed colluding with the 10 Chang attendants and plotting to harm his brother. The evidence of the crime is clear and unforgivable. Lu Ji actually had something to say in his heart. Empress Dowager, he issued an edict to lure he into the palace, and he also committed the crime of conspiring to murder his brother. Your crime of punishing Wu Kuang is not reasonable at all. Empress Dowager, he knew very well that although Wu Kuang was a subordinate of He Jin, she was still a member of Yuan Xiao and Yuan Shu. Now that General He Jin had died, she had no support outside the palace and could not compete with the Yuan brothers. She had never heard of Lu Bu's taboos before, and looking at him without any pretentious aura, she knew that Lu Bu came from a humble family, definitely not from a noble family. After a little inquiry, she found that he had no connection with the Yuan family, so it was easy for Lu Bu to win over or control. She could just promote Lu Bu to restrain the power of the Yuan family and protect her own safety. Empress Dowager, he waved her hand and said, forget it, we won't hold them accountable for their crimes for now. General LV, now that both the general and the general of chariots and cavalry have been brutally executed, their troops and horses are headless. I apologize for the family's request that you go and lead them. What do you think? Lu Bu was overjoyed. Someone was giving pillows when he was dozing off. He was digging for some practical military power to gain independence from Ding Yuan's command, so he received an order to thank him, I will go right away. Empress Dowager, he once again said to Lu Ji, Lord Lu, now that the country is in crisis and it is the time to hire people, you do not need to resign from your position and retire. Your position will be restored and you will be in charge of the Imperial Secretariat. I have drafted an edict for you, ordering LV Bu to temporarily replace the Guanglu Xun, Ding Yuan to retire as the cavalry captain, and Lord Lu, you will also serve as the Minister of Works. Upon seeing He Miao's sudden death, Lu Ji knew that there must be a strong general to lead the remaining troops of He Jin and He Miao to quell the situation. Moreover, as Lu Bu was only a temporary representative, he followed Empress Dowager He's instructions and issued an appointment decree on the Shangshu platform. Lu Bu held this edict and informed Ding Yuan. Although Ding Yuan resented Lu Bu's good luck, he had to distribute 3,000 Bingzhou cavalry to Lu Bu to fulfill his imperial mandate. Lu Bu, along with generals such as Gao Shun and Qin Yi, and 3,000 cavalry, prepared to head towards the main camp stationed by He Jin's left and right Feathered Forest Army, Huban Army, Northern Army's 5 battalions, and He Miao's cavalry and chariot troops. Chapter 7. Old Pifu Wang Yun. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Before leaving, Lu Bu had 2 things to do. Lu Bu rode up to the captured 10 attendants Zhao Zhong and Guosheng and smiled slightly, can I borrow something from you? Zhao Zhong and Guosheng kowtowed like garlic, General, just speak up and beg to spare the villain. Lu Bu gave a cold smile and said, I'll borrow your heads. As Fang Tian drew a halberd and a red light flashed across it, Zhao Zhong and Guosheng's heads rolled to the ground. Gao Shun quickly asked someone to pick up these 2 heads and hang them on the horse's head. Lu Ji was puzzled and said, General LV, what is your intention? Lu Bu glanced at Empress Dowager He, who was already protected by Yuan Xiao, Cao Cao, and others not far away. The Empress Dowager's imperial decree has already sent He Jin and He Miao to death, and their subordinates are also afraid that the eunuchs will demand their lives. The heads of these 2 eunuchs are enough to reassure them. Lu Ji comforted his beard and laughed, with 2 armies at each end, I will think carefully and make use of the dead. After borrowing the head, LV Bu persuaded Lu Ji to participate in protecting Empress Dowager He, fearing that Yuan Xiao and his party would seize the opportunity to completely control Empress Dowager He and make arbitrary edicts. When Lu Ji walked away, Lu Bu turned to look at Song Xian and Qing Lian. These 2 guys were a bit unhappy because they didn't plunder the imperial palace and make a fortune like Wei Su did. Liu Bu ordered the two of them to come forward and say, "You two should each lead your soldiers." Song Xian asked the young eunuch to lead the way to raid the mansions of the big eunuchs outside the palace, and Cheng Lian to raid the mansions of the high-ranking officials who colluded with the 10 regular attendants. These guys hold high positions and should have received a lot of money. You must have gained a lot from this. However, you cannot embezzle it, you must hand it over in full, and then I will distribute it to you. Liu Fengxian, will definitely not lose to everyone. In addition, we must not indiscriminately kill, set fire, and anyone who violates will be beheaded. Originally, Liu Bu was just a small clerk with no authority to give orders to them. However, for a long time, the image of Liu Bu as the god of war leader who led the charge has deeply penetrated the hearts of the soldiers in Bingzhou. Coupled with Liu Bu's proper deployment, the Bingzhou army has made a fortune. They are not satisfied with anything, not to mention that he has been trusted by the Empress Dowager and awarded the Order of Glory. They all willingly accepted the orders and even forgot to ask Ding Yuan for his help. Liu Bu knew that there must be many private soldiers in those courtyards. In order to protect the soldiers of Bingzhou from suffering too much loss, Liu Bu once again requested a decree from Empress Dowager He, asking Song Xian and Cheng Lian to lead them to dissolve the opponent's resistance. Liu Bu led 3,000 Bingzhou iron cavalry to charge towards the left and right Yuan military camps. As soon as I left the palace gate, I saw an Amei crown belt with sword eyebrows and starry eyes. It seemed that a righteous guy led 300 to 400 scattered soldiers to charge into the palace, shouting one after another, "Sweep away the eunuchs. Help the great man." Liu Bu found it amusing to see them pretending to be just and shouted at them, "You're late." The old man in his 50s rode a white horse and ran forward, sternly saying, "The Prince of Hunan, Wang Yun, is here. Who else are you?" He was so happy when the general was killed by death. After hearing the name Wang Yun, Liu Bu didn't hesitate to say anything and said in vulgar language, "Mind your mother's business." In history, Wang Yunli used Liu Bu as if he was using a cloth, and threw it away as soon as he used it. After using Liu Bu to kill Dongzhuo, he monopolized power. Liu Bu asked him to forgive the rest of Dongzhuo's troops, but he refused. Liu Bu asked him to reward Dongzhuo's wealth to the officials and soldiers, but he refused to comply. He has always looked down upon Liu Bu and treated him like a swordsman. Note 1. If it weren't for keeping this conspirator as a prelude to getting rid of Dongzhuo, Liu Bu would have wanted to kill this old Wang Badan immediately. Wang Yun, who was accustomed to being morally upright, had heard such insults before. He stared at Liu Bu and pointed his finger at him. You actually insulted the minister." Liu Bu sneered and said, "You're just a Hunan magistrate, you're nothing among the officials and ministers of the Manchu dynasty. However, this old boy has a high ability to lick people's buttocks." It turned out that when he was serving as the governor of Yuzhou, he fought with the 10 attendants. Zhang Rang spoke ill of him in front of Emperor Ling of Han and sent him to prison. Later, he licked the buttocks of He Jin and Yuan Wei, regained his original position, and was promoted to the position of Hunan Yin, equivalent to the secretary of the Tianjing Municipal Committee of the later Heavenly Dynasty. Later, he licked Dongzhuo's buttocks and became a Situ, in charge of education, equivalent to the 9 Bags elder who later focused on spiritual civilization in the Heavenly Dynasty. Wang Yun saw that 3,000 cavalry soldiers under Liu Bu were full of murderous intent, and he dared not let his 300 soldiers come forward. He only dared to get off guard and said, "Wait, I must report to the Empress Dowager to punish you for insulting the minister." Liu Bu was so annoyed with this bastard that he really wanted to raise the Fang Tianhua halberd and poke him with a cold heart. Wang Yun saw a fierce light on Liu Bu's face, so he had to pull his horse and run away, saying, "It's insulting to have a verbal altercation with you, an unscrupulous man." Liu Bu saw Wang Yun urging his horses to run like rabbits, and knowing the tragic fate of Wang Yun being beheaded by Li Yan and Guosi in the future, his anger did not accumulate for too long and quickly dissipated. Liu Bu was well aware that a bastard like Wang Yun from a noble family would not allow a military general from a humble background like Dong Zhuo and Liu Bu to take control of the court. In this era, after the death of one Wang Yun, there may be countless so-called aristocratic ministers like Wang Yun. Only by supporting the poor and commoners to resist the aristocratic family like Cao Cao is the right path. It is futile to try to win over like Dong Zhuo. Yang Diao and Wang Yun, among others, are still plotting to harm him. Liu Bu was about to turn his horse around and go to subdue the remaining soldiers of He, but he was surprised by Wang Yun's strange behavior. Wang Yunmu didn't squint and sat upright on the horse, walking towards the palace gate. As a result, in front of a disheveled palace maid, Wang Yun restrained his horse and stopped. The original positive energy on his face instantly disappeared, becoming lewd and lewd. As lewd as it was, so lewd as it was. Liu Bu is very strange. How much magic should a disheveled palace maid have? She can turn Wang Yun, who is usually dignified enough to be responsible for social education, into a flower picker. Liu Bu signaled to Gao Shun to lead the cavalry to surround the Wang Yun family's army and rode his horse towards the palace maid. Liu Bu saw that the palace maid was just bowing her head, and a sparkling light was shining all over her body. She knew that she had definitely met a stunning beauty, and quickly jumped off her horse, carrying the Fangtian painted halberd, and walked to the palace maid. The palace maid tightly held on to something in her arms. Perhaps due to the endless fighting and flying of her head, she felt uneasy and timidly hid at the foot of the wall, afraid to look up at people. Wang Yun saw that Liu Bu wanted to come forward and grab the palace maid, so he shouted loudly, "Pifu, do you want to snatch the palace maid? How dare you do such a heinous and immoral thing? Aren't you afraid of being executed by the 9 clans?" Liu Bu raised his painted halberd, but Wang Yun couldn't avoid it. The sharp tip of the painted halberd was aimed at his throat and cursed fiercely, "What kind of saliva do you, a defender full of male thieves and female prostitutes, have on the palace maids?" Wang Yun put on a sacred appearance of fearlessness towards sharp weapons and loyalty to the emperor and the people. "I had intended to invite this palace maid to my home to temporarily avoid the war. After the situation subsides, I will personally send her back to the palace." Upon hearing Wang Yun's words, Liu Bu suddenly remembered something. He stepped forward and picked up the palace maid, looking straight at her face. Although her face was covered in dust and tears, it still couldn't conceal her enchanting beauty. Chapter 8. She is Xiao Jiao Chan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The palace maid saw Liu Bu recklessly pulling her, thinking that Liu Bu wanted to disrespect her. She quickly revealed what was in her arms, and before Liu Bu could react, she felt a shining sword wrapped around her neck. At this moment, Liu Bu could see clearly that she was holding a precious sword in her arms. The sword was 1 foot and 2 inches long, adorned with 7 colored gemstones, shining brilliantly. The blade was extremely sharp, and a strand of Liu Bu's hair floated on the blade, instantly turning into 2 pieces. It was truly a legendary sword that could be used for cutting hair, gold, jade, and iron like mud. Liu Bu was not afraid at all, and his eyes were infinitely gentle as he asked, "Miss, don't be afraid. I am Liu Bu Fengxian, the newly appointed Guanglu Xun appointed by the Empress Dowager, in charge of the palace guards. This killing of treacherous officials has caused too much trouble for the girl, and it is Bu's fault to accompany her." The originally cold and stern gaze of the palace maid suddenly became gentle, with autumn waves swirling and heart-stirring. However, as soon as she spoke, she amused Liu Bu and said, "General Liu, aren't you working as a chief clerk under the command of Governor Ding? How did you come to the capital to be a Guanglu Xun?" The Shaanxi accent, which covered most of Shaanxi province, made Liu Bu feel very friendly. Although Liu Bu was born in Jiuyuan County, Weiyuan County, Baotou, Inner Mongolia, he went to Jinyang, Bingzhou with his father Liu Liang at the age of 10, so he became accustomed to speaking Shaanxi dialect. However, when he arrived in Luoyang, he naturally had to speak Mandarin. Mandarin is based on the Zhongzhou dialect, which refers to the reading pronunciation of Luoyang as an office language, not the spoken language of Luoyang, let alone the later Luoyang accent. Liu Bu smiled and said, "Yes, half a month ago, Lord Ding was summoned by the Grand General to the court to execute traitorous officials. Because I was meritorious in saving the Empress Dowager, the Empress Dowager ordered me to temporarily replace Guanglu Xun." "How did you know about me?" The beautiful eyes of the palace maid circulated. The little girl's original surname was Ren, her nickname was Hongchang, and she was born in Jiuyuan County, Wuyuan County. She was originally from a neighboring village with the general, and later moved to Taiyuan County with her parents. Due to her intelligence, she was recruited into the palace at the age of 15 to serve as a female official in charge of the palace's headdress and crown, known as Jiao Chan Guan. Note 2. Before entering the palace, the little girl often heard of General LV's heroic story of killing the yellow turban thief and the Hu people. Liu Bu was stunned. It turned out that she was really Jiao Chan. The love that had traveled through time and space for thousands of years made him suddenly unsure of what to say. He saw Jiao Chan staring blankly at him, with a hint of admiration in his eyes. He couldn't help but laugh and say, "Xiao Jiao Chan, is your knife still hanging around my neck?" Jiao Chan quickly sheathed her precious sword, and in embarrassment, she couldn't help but giggle like a silver bell. "General LV, I'm really reckless. This 7-star precious sword is very sharp and didn't hurt you." Liu Bu was moved by her bright smile and said, "Xiao Jiaochan, if it's not hurt, it's just hurt. I'm willing to do it too." Jiao Chan had encountered such a straightforward man from childhood to adulthood, and her face turned red all at once. Wang Yun, who was standing on the side, was unwilling to only drink soy sauce and interjected, "Miss, I am Wang Yun from the Wang family in Qi County, Bingzhou. I am currently the magistrate of Hunan. Since we are both from the same hometown, why not stay at my house for a few days, Mississippi?" Upon hearing this, LV Bu was furious and raised his painted halberd to stab Wang Yun. Wang Yun couldn't avoid it, and the tip of the painted halberd once again pressed against Wang Yun's throat. LV Bu shouted loudly, "Old man, if you dare to kidnap a good woman again, LV Bu will kill you and then hurry." Wang Yun was embarrassed and distressed, but he didn't want to sacrifice his life for a woman. He quickly ran away like a rabbit to discuss with Yuan, Xiao and others how to get rid of these humble newcomers such as Ding Yuan and LV Bu. Jiao Chan pouted and said angrily, "General LV, why did you treat Lord Wang so viciously just now? He seems to be a good man. Now the war is in turmoil. Just now, there were soldiers who wanted to rape my sisters. That sisters was in charge of the seal, and was forced to throw it into a well. I was so quick to get wise that I took some dirt on my face to avoid those animals. If Lord Wang could settle me in his house, so that I wouldn't have to face the burning, killing and looting again, it would be great." Perhaps thinking of the sisters who died in the well, Jiao Chan suddenly burst into tears. LV Bu was hit by the word she just said. The sisters was in charge of the seal and was forced to throw the seal into the well. According to the Three Kingdoms Annals and the Three Kingdoms Romance, LV Bu said that after killing the eunuchs, after checking the palace, the imperial seal was missing, and also said that Sun Jian found the imperial seal in the well when cleaning the palace when he entered Luoyang city. So this time he may have met the imperial seal. Liu Bu's mood was very agitated. Of course, he was not foolish enough to completely occupy it like Sun Jian and Yuan Shu, and keep it for future emperor. He wanted to use the jade seal as a political token to exchange benefits like Sun Tzu. Anyway, with this imperial jade seal in hand, LV Bu can use it to disrupt the time and space of the Three Kingdoms, and then win in the chaos. However, the top priority was to comfort Jiao Chan. LV Bu said softly, "Why don't you stay in my mansion temporarily? When the situation in Luoyang is settled, I will send you back to your hometown in Bingzhou." Upon hearing this, Jiao Chan burst into tears and said, "My parents were killed by the Xiongnu when I was 15 years old. I am now alone and homeless." Liu Bu felt both happy and sad in his heart. He was happy that Jiao Chan was homeless and had to go back with him. What was sad was that he had memories of Liu Bu before and remembered his parents who had lost their lives in Xinbei. He couldn't help but grit his teeth and say, "Xiao Jiao Chan, don't worry, I will definitely kill all the Huns and Xinbei and avenge our parents." At this time, Lu Bu did not realize that the policy of burning all, killing all, and robbing all three was a political failure. The best way to retaliate against the Xiongnu was to recruit them and let them consume everything when dealing with the stronger Xinbei people. Jiao Chan raised her small face and burst into tears, saying, "General LV, are you serious about this? Can you really avenge my parents?" Liu Bu was captivated by her peach blossom-like smile, and even pulled up Jiao Chan's little hand, with his little thumb hooked on it. Little Jiao Chan, hang with a hook, unchanged for 100 years. In the late Eastern Han dynasty, there may not have been such a childish way of making promises, but Jiao Chan was very clever. She understood LV Bu's intimate promise and blushed and said to LV Bu, "Why do you always call me Xiao Jiao Chan? She is already 16 years old and not young. Besides, I am the female official in charge of Jiao Chan, not Jiao Chan." Note 1. Yun Chu proposed to pardon Zhuobuku, and LV Bu also advised him several times. Then he doubted and said, "This generation is innocent, let it be heard by their master. If we were to pardon them for their wickedness and rebellion, it would be enough to make them doubt themselves. This is not the way to be safe." LV Bu also wanted to give the excellent wealth class to the officials and generals, but agreed but did not comply. And light cloth, meet with swordsman, biography of Wang Yun in the Book of Later Han, Note 2. Jiao tail and cicada feathers are ancient ornaments on the official crown. The Jiao Changguan originated in the Han dynasty and was originally used as a crown decoration for high-ranking officials such as the Shizhong and Changshi. Later, it developed into a ceremonial crown for senior officials. The Jiao Chan crown, also known as a cage scarf, is woven on rattan lacquer and shaped like a flat scarf. It is decorated with silver flowers in front and tortoiseshell cicadas on top. There are 3 small cicadas on the left and right, holding a jade nose and a jiao tail inserted on the left. During the grand court meeting of the Sangong and Prince's Ancestral Hall, Jiao Chan was added to the imperial crown and worn. Therefore, Jiao Chan may be a palace maid in the palace, rather than the maid of Dongzhuo or the wife of Qinilu, as some have verified. The historical truth may be that Jiao Chan escaped from the palace during the 10 Constant Attendance Rebellion and was discovered by Hunanin Wang Yun, who came to execute eunuchs. He found a rare treasure and hid it in the mansion. Later, when he needed to use a serial timer, he offered Jiao Chan. The 7-star treasure knife may have been originally a treasure in the palace, worn by Jiao Chan for self-defense. Later, when it was received by Wang Yun at the palace, he presented the 7-star treasure knife to Wang Yun. Chapter 9. The Chuan Guo Yu Xi. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Liu Bu couldn't help but chuckle and said, "Brother, I'm 8 years old in 20, Note 1, 11 years older than you. I think Jiao Chan's name sounds great as a person. I will announce to the Empress Dowager and change the name of Jiao Changguan to Guaning Guan. From now on, in the world, only you are called Jiao Chan. Do you think this is good?" Jiao Chan was stunned by LV Bu's soaring boldness. She never imagined that a humble female official could have the court change her official name for her. Perhaps it was because she had heard many heroic deeds of Lu Bu for a long time, and unconsciously, she had developed an inexplicable hero worship for him. However, this hero is not unattainable and unattainable. He stands in front of himself, kind and lovely, with a smiling face. Jiao Chan was in the palace under the jealous Empress Dowager and it could be said that, for 360 days a year, wind, frost, and swords were fiercely pressing against each other. She knew that many palace maids who were favored by Emperor Ling were drugged and killed by Empress He after becoming pregnant. At a young age, she quickly learned how to hide her strength and keep her hidden. She dressed herself ugly all the time and tried to avoid Emperor Ling of Han until his death. Jiao Chan thought he had to protect everything, but who knew that Yuan, Xiao and others had killed the 10 attendants, causing chaos in the Luoyang Palace City. Jiao Chan has been in Luoyang City for over a year and has hardly ever smiled, while in front of Lvbu, she cannot suppress the warmth and happiness in her heart. Jiao Chan heard Lvbu say that she was 20.8 years old and a young man, so she boldly raised her head and looked at him carefully. I saw that Lvbu was exceptionally tall, over 9 feet tall, with ape arms and waist, straight and symmetrical. He wore a golden crown with hair tied around his head, a 100-flower battle robe, Tangyenai armor, and a lion barbarian treasure belt around his waist. He held a square-meter celestial painting halberd in his hand, exuding a majestic aura. Looking at Lvbu's face again, due to his long residence on the grassland, his skin was somewhat bronze-colored, but his skin was delicate and smooth, unlike a seasoned warrior. His facial features were sharp and angular, his nose was tall and straight, his thin lips appeared somewhat rebellious, his eyes were like stars, bright and lively, as if there was an electric light flashing in his eyes. Jiao Chan and Lvbu looked at each other with both eyes, and Lvbu couldn't help but feel emotional. His eyes were vivid, and when he turned off the light, Jiao Chan blushed and shyly lowered her head, saying coquettishly, "You're lying, I see you're just in your 20s. Lu Bu thought to himself, isn't that right? When he came from the 21st century, he had just graduated from university and was only 21 years old. Is it the young soul that can make the appearance younger, born from the heart? Lvbu thought about the many things he had to do for the day, and didn't have time to cultivate feelings with Jiao Chan. He didn't ask Jiao Chan for her opinion, so he made the decision to let her live in his own home first. Lvbu remembered that his father in Law Yenmu was a big businessman in Bingzhou and had a mansion in Luoyang. He summoned his personal guard Li He and said, "Tai Bai, take 10 brothers and protect this girl from entering my father in Law's mansion. If there are any unscrupulous criminals on the way, they will be executed without mercy." Li He comes from a humble background and originally did not have a crown character. It was Lu Bu who thought his personality was very interesting, so he gave him a very funny character, Tai Bai. Every time he called Li He, Lu Bu felt a sense of parody pleasure. Li He is indeed very black, but he used to be a sheep herder and horse herder on the grassland, constantly getting tanned by the sun. He is chubby and looks cute, but in fact, he is very shrewd and capable in handling people and things. Li He frowned and walked forward. "General, Madam is currently waiting in that house to see General. It's not appropriate for me to escort this girl over." Lvbu suddenly frowned and asked, "Wei Su didn't tell his cousin. Who spread the word back to Bingzhou? I wonder if my wife's health is not good." After hesitating for a moment, Li He mustered up the courage and said, "I heard that it was Hao Meng who sent someone back to notify." Lvbu remembers that when he followed his father to seek refuge in Dingyuan, Lvbu was under the command of Hao Meng. When Lvbu repelled the invasion of Xinbei, he once saved the Yenmu family. Yenmu saw that Lvbu had extraordinary martial arts skills, so he made the decision to marry his daughter to Lvbu. At that time, Lvbu also sent someone to seek marriage to the Yen family, but was rejected by Yenmu. From then on, Lvbu and Hao Meng were at odds, but Hao Meng, seeing that Lvbu's martial arts were unparalleled, dared not offend him and instead bent down to flatter him. Fortunately, Lvbu accidentally saw through his true identity. Lvbu pondered for a moment and said to Li He, "Just tell Madam the truth, she naturally knows how to settle this girl. Also, tell Madam that I am doing well now, please don't worry. When the situation in Luoyang stabilizes, I will naturally come to see her." Li He nodded and promised, ready to take orders and leave. Jiao Chan saw that Lvbu was about to leave, so he quickly raised the 7-star sword and handed it to Liu Bu, saying, General Diao Chan saw that he only had long weapons but no short weapons. This 7-star sword is a treasure in the palace, and I used to hold it for self-defense. Now that I have the protection of the general's elite subordinates, I don't need it anymore. I will give it to the general, and in the future, he will kill more Xiongnu bandits for me. Seeing Diao Chan's sincerity, Liu Bu no longer declined politely. He took the 7-star sword and hung it around his waist, saying to Diao Chan, the sword is for heroes, and red powder is for beauties. Stay at home and wait for me to bring back some rouge for you. After watching Diao Chan and others walk away, Liu Bu ordered Gao Shun to lead his soldiers to clean up all the unrelated people in the palace. Several of Wang Yun's family soldiers attempted to resist and were executed on the spot. Liu Bu, along with several trusted individuals such as Gao Shun and Qin Yi, looked through all the water wells in the palace and finally saw some faint light appearing in one of them. Looking down, he discovered a floating body of a palace maid in the water. Liu Bu quickly ordered someone to retrieve the body of the palace maid. There was a silk bag hanging around her neck. Opening the bag, he saw a small red box inside. Liu Bu was not quite sure yet, so he asked Gao Shun to find a small palace and let him guard the entrance. After entering the palace, Liu Bu found a corner and opened the box. Inside was really the imperial jade seal, which was 4 inches in size and engraved with the 5-dragon cross button, lacking a corner by the side, inlaid with gold. There is a seal script with 8 characters that says, taking orders from heaven brings longevity and eternal prosperity. Liu Bu breathed a sigh, and finally he had control of something that could change the history of the 3 kingdoms. Note 2. He carefully stroked the imperial jade seal back and forth several times before gently putting it into the box, locking the box, and then putting it into a brocade bag washed with water. Liu Bu carefully stuffed the brocade bag into his armor, tied it firmly, and then he walked out of the hall with peace of mind, beckoning Gao Shun to join forces and march towards the left and right camps of the Feather Forest Army commanded by He Jin during his lifetime. Note 1. Liu Bu once referred to Liu Bei as his younger brother, and various details in both official history and historical events show that Liu Bu was older than Liu Bei and younger than Cao Cao. In December of the 3rd year of Jianan, 198, when he was defeated, he should have been between 37 and 41 years old. Taking the minimum value of 37 years old, he should have been born in Gongyuan 161. When he appeared in the 6th year of Zhongping, 189, his age was about 28 years old. Note 2. History of the encounter of the Jade Seal in the late Eastern Han Dynasty. In the 6th year of Emperor Ling's Shiping reign, Yuan Xiao entered the palace to execute eunuchs, Duan Gui fled with the emperor, and the Jade Seal disappeared. During the reign of Emperor Xian, Dong Zhuo rebelled. Sun Jian led his army to attack Luoyang. On a certain day, soldiers saw a well in the Zhen Palace in the south of the city with colorful clouds, so they sent someone into the well. They saw a small box tied around the neck of the palace maid who had committed suicide by throwing herself into the well, and the box contained the imperial jade seal. Sun Jianru obtained a precious treasure and kept it secret with his wife Wu. Later, Yuan Shu arrested the Wu family and seized the imperial seal, possibly not as stated in the Romance of the 3 Kingdoms, where Sun Tzu borrowed troops from the Jade Seal. After Yuan Shu's death, Su Qiu, the governor of Jingzhou, brought his seal to Xuchang and presented it to Cao Cao. Chapter 10. Huang Zhong and Huang Hansheng. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Yulin left army camp was not far from Nangong, and 3,000 iron cavalry arrived in Chazhan Kung Fu. The location of the camp was called Yududing, Note 1, which reminded Liu Bu of the Duding Marquis he had been granted in history. He didn't know what connection he had with this Yududing. 3,000 iron cavalry surrounded the left army camp in Yulin. Liu Bu stood outside the camp and shouted loudly, "At the will of the Empress Dowager, I have come to receive the Yulin army. Open the door quickly." Liu Bu is very strange. It should be said that the news of He Jin's execution has already reached the left army camp in Yuan. This camp may have been in chaos for a long time, so why is it so solemn and silent? Liu Bu used his years of combat intuition to determine that there were thousands of people inside, and the deadly aura emanating from the swords and halberds could not be concealed. Liu Bu was afraid that Yuan, Xiao and other forces would seize control of the Yuan army first, so he quickly ordered the Bingzhou Iron Cavalry to prepare to resist. At this moment, a warrior stood on the wall of the left army camp in the Yuan mountains. He was nearly 40 years old, tall and robust, with a face as pale as gold and eyes as bright as lightning. He was not angry but mighty, holding a large sword in his hand, and shouted loudly at Liu Bu, "You are under the command of that lord. How dare you besiege the Yuan army camp?" As he drank heavily, hundreds of archers suddenly emerged from the walls of the fortress. Archers arched and aimed at the Bingzhou cavalry. Liu Bu quickly stood on horseback and took out Empress Dowager He's imperial edict. "I am Liu Bu, the newly appointed Guanglu Xun. At the behest of the Empress Dowager, I have come to take over the left and right Yuan army." Later, he recited the imperial edict and sent Qin Yi to bring it to the gate of the Yuan. The general ordered someone to put down a basket with a rope, and Qin Yi placed the imperial edict in the basket. After verifying the imperial edict, the general shouted loudly, "How do you know it's not that the corrupt officials are coercing the Empress Dowager to correct the edict?" Gao Shun raised the heads of Zhao Zhong and Guosheng and shouted loudly, "The 10 constant attendants have now been completely executed by my general. There is evidence of the heads of the 10 constant attendants Zhao Zhong and Guosheng." In order to show the soldiers of the Feathered Forest army above clearly, Gao Shun was not afraid of bows and arrows and rode his horse to the front of the fortress. After carefully observing, the soldiers of the Feathered Forest army were filled with joy. It is undeniable that although He Jin has almost no political wisdom, he also manages the military well and has won the hearts of the military. The general then ordered the archers to release their bows and arrows, and the gate opened wide, allowing the Bingzhou Iron Cavalry to enter the camp. The general arched his hand and apologized. "Huang Zhong, the captain of the left army in the Yuan mountains, has received great kindness from the general. He dare not shoulder the responsibility of the general. I hope General LV can forgive me for this responsibility." Liu Bu was surprised and stuttered angrily, Are you Huang Zhong, Huang Hansheng?" Huang Zhong smiled slightly and said, "Just a month after I arrived in Luoyang, Lord LV actually knew about me, Huang Hansheng. Lord LV is really well informed, and Hansheng admires me." Liu Bu was very puzzled and said, "Aren't you supposed to be with Liu Biao in Jingzhou? How could you be under the command of a general?" Huang Zhong asked in a strange way, "I don't know where Lord LV got the news. It would be so absurd. Liu Biao, Liu Jingsheng, is now a middle-ranking official in the Northern Army, in charge of the 5 camps of the Northern Army. How could he be in Jingzhou? And I, along with the general, are both from Nanyang and have old acquaintances. When the general was using people to kill corrupt officials, he called me up from Nanyang and rewarded me with the position of colonel of the left army in Yuan. What does this have to do with Liu Biao?" Upon hearing Huang Zhong's words, Liu Bu suddenly remembered that he had read an article before that recorded history where He Jin asked his subordinate Huang Zhong to write a letter to another subordinate asking him to sacrifice his life. At that time, the article analyzed that this Huang Zhong was the later 5 Tiger generals Huang Zhong, because He Jin's subordinate Huang Zhong, like He Jin, was also from Nanyang, and only one Huang Zhong appeared in Nanyang during the 3 Kingdoms period. And Liu Biao went to serve as the governor of Jingzhou before the first year of Chuping, 190 AD. At that time, the former governor of Jingzhou, Wang Rui, was killed by Sun Jian. Dong Zhuo recommended Liu Biao to the court as the governor of Jingzhou. As for why Huang Zhong later became under Liu Biao's command, it is not difficult to analyze. In the original history, after He Jin's death, Dongzhuo incorporated He Jin's badminton army. Huang Zhong resigned from his position and returned to his hometown in shame of sacrificing his life for Dongzhuo. Nanyang was under the jurisdiction of Jingzhou, and Huang Zhong was naturally summoned by Liu Biao to serve as a commander, guarding Jingnan with Liu Biao's nephew Liu Pan. At the age of 60, Huang Zhong was able to draw with Guan Yu, who was in his 40s. He almost shot Guan Yu to death. At the age of 70, he killed the fierce general Xiao Yuan in battle, and his commanding ability was also very good. He played to the fullest in the Battle of Hansheng, but unfortunately that became his swan song. Compared to Lian Pe, who was also a veteran general, he became famous too late. Many people who watch the Three Kingdoms feel sorry for Huang Zhong. They say they are afraid that only the middle-aged Huang Zhong can defeat Lu Bu. Lu Bu felt great joy in his heart. He couldn't let go of Huang Zhong this time. He must subdue him and let him wholeheartedly serve him. With Huang Zhong present, he didn't have to work so hard. When he encountered a fierce general, he personally took action. Lu Bu arched his hand and apologized. Brother Hansheng, who listened to the rumors and deeply apologized. Huang Zhong saw Lu Bu's sincere attitude and smiled, saying, "I'm sorry, you don't need to be polite. Why don't we start now?" The Feather Forest army led by He Jin was divided into two armies, one on the left and the other on the right, with 2,000 soldiers in each army. Huang Zhong was the commander of the left camp, Colonel. Lu Bu successfully handed over the military symbol and seal to Huang Zhong. Just as he was about to establish a good relationship with Huang Zhong, he saw Huang Zhong turn around to pack his luggage. Lu Bu quickly grabbed Huang Zhong and said, "Brother Hansheng, where are you going?" Huang Zhong smiled faintly and said, "I handed over the military power of the left army in Yuan to you, and then I stepped down from my position as the colonel of the left army. Since the general has passed away, I am not a loyal person. What's the point of staying in Luoyang? It's better to return to my hometown in Nanyang." Lu Bu was very excited. A fierce general was about to miss out on him. Can he not be excited? He grabbed Huang Zhong's arm and said, "Hansheng, this statement is ridiculous. The general has shown great kindness to Hansheng. If Hansheng doesn't lead troops to kill traitors and seek revenge for the general, if he doesn't protect Empress Dowager He to share the burden with the general, and if he doesn't protect the little emperor and Prince Qianlu to share the responsibility with the general, I don't know how Hansheng can live up to the general." Huang Zhong stood there dumbfounded and murmured, "I, Huang Hansheng, am sorry to the general. I am sorry to the general." After muttering a few words, he suddenly woke up to something wrong. However, according to the Tanma report, the wise brother of Fengxian and the Colonel Yuan of Sili have already exterminated the corrupt officials. Now that General LV has obtained the Empress Dowager's decree, it indicates that the Empress Dowager has been well protected by you. Perhaps the young emperor and Prince Qianlu are also safe and sound. In this way, even if I, Huang Hansheng, want to repay the great general's kindness, what should I do? Note 1. The biography of He Jin, in the book of later Han records. In the first year of Zhongping, the yellow turban thief Zhang Jiao and others rose up and appointed Jin as the Grand General, leading the soldiers from the 5 camps of the left and right Feather Forest to garrison the capital, repair equipment, and stabilize the capital. According to the biography of Lu Bu in the Book of Wei in the records of the Three Kingdoms, the head of Buzhan Yuan was appointed as Zhuo. Zhuo appointed Bu as the cavalry captain and loved to believe him, swearing to be his father and son. Bu Bian bows and horses, with extraordinary strength, known as Fei Jiang. Moved slightly to Zhonglang General and was granted the title of Marquis of the Capital Pavilion.